I should say that, I'm proud to be able to say that Nancy Pelosi is a friend of mine. When I first started the Quilt, she and her husband opened up their home. The very first fundraiser to raise money to take the Quilt to Washington in '87 came from her and her friends. When I went to the Park Service and tried to get the permit to display the quilt on the mall, they turned me down and said it would kill the grass. And Nancy took me to the Park Service, and we sat across the table from this bureaucrat and said, "You can't do it, it's going to kill the lawn." And she said, "Well, we fluff the quilt every 20 minutes so the grass could breathe, would that be all right?" And I started to say, "We can't do that," and she kicked me under the table and persuaded them that I was going to fluff the quilt every 20 minutes. Of course, we killed every blade of grass on the lawn that weekend. But I would just say that I believe that she is a supporter of equality and a supporter of our community, as I believe Barack Obama to be as well. And so what we're hearing, I think, is not really a rejection of our aspirations, but a reality check. And I think what we're really hearing is that basically when they're saying you're not being realistic, you don't have the votes. And so my response to that is that we have to change the reality. Changing the reality is a complex process. And we are marching on October 11th, certainly with a clear message for the President and the Congress and the United States Supreme Court. But I think perhaps even more important than that is the message that we are sending to our own people, our own community, and our many heterosexual allies. I believe that it is time, if we truly believe that we are equal, as I do, it is time to act that way. I've taken a lot of heat over the last several months, in particular for saying that I believe the strategy that we have been following is a failed strategy. And I say that with nothing but love and respect for all of us who have pursued that strategy for the past 40 years. It was, in fact, the only strategy that was available to us. We lived through the long, dark years of Reagan and the Bushes, and Clinton wasn't much better for us. And the Republicans had a stranglehold on everything. So for many years, for decades, in fact, all we could hope for were crumbs. All we could hope for were fractions of equality. And so in college towns like Ann Arbor and Madison, in liberal enclaves like San Francisco and other communities across the country, we organized, we fought hard, and we achieved very significant local victories that did move us forward. But all of those victories have been incomplete, and we see increasing evidence that they are also impermanent. One of the legitimate, thoughtful criticisms of the proposed March on Washington came from people who were concerned about resources. As we look at what's happening in Maine, in the state of Washington, in the city of Kalamazoo, and also in California, my state, where the big debate raging now is, do we take Prop 8 to the ballot to repeal in 2010 or 2012? But my position is that this situation will continue forever in the absence of decisive, unequivocal action from the President and the Congress. So I care deeply about what happens in Maine and the state of Washington. I have some sense of the anxiety that our people are experiencing there. There's also been the question of, well, how can we justify spending money on a march on Washington when people are scrambling for money in Maine to wage this campaign? I reject this argument completely. I reject the notion that there is a finite amount of money that is available at any given time for this work. I reject the notion that there is a limited number of volunteer hours available at any one time. Social movements are required to grow or they wither and they die. And we're doing this budget, as I promised from the beginning, on an absolute shoestring. And I'm quite certain that there will be more money spent in gay clubs this weekend in Manhattan alone than we are spending for the entire budget of this march. And I think what I have found most troubling is the difficulty with which some people really the difficulty some people have, I think, in really believing in their hearts that we truly are equal and entitled to the rights as the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution specifies, the Equal Protection Clause. I think we've been so used for so long to accepting these crumbs. Harvey Milk made a joke of it in a column he wrote back in 1973, and I'm a little cautious about saying this in this building, but he said masturbation can be fun, but it doesn't replace the real thing. And he was referring to our leaders, who he said were too often playing with each other and not demanding the real thing. I agree with that. Under Clinton, we got the flowery proclamations. Some of our friends got really great jobs. And what did we get out of it? We got Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the Defense of Marriage Act. I am sick and tired of it. So we have organized this march around one demand and one demand only. There was a reason for that was very carefully thought out. We all know that there are a host of issues. There are innumerable rights that we are denied solely because of our sexual orientation. The right to marriage alone brings with it over 1,000 specific individual rights. We also know, of course, the incredible stupidity and injustice of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. We know the cruelty of loved ones, families being separated by the immigration policy. We know of the injustice of the tax system, the incredible pain of parents who are unable to keep their children or adopt their parents' children. But what happens when you present that long laundry list to the politicians is they pick one out. They say, okay, let me test the wind. Okay, you can have this in 2 years. And then you could have this one in 5 years. And then in 10 years, maybe you can have this if you behave and don't cause too much trouble. I'm tired of it. I think that a free and equal people would not settle, would not tolerate these kinds of compromises and these kinds of delays. So we chose to organize this march around one single issue, and that issue is equal protection under the law in all matters governed by civil law in all 50 states, period. I also want to say that I had no intention of taking this on. I thought about this. One of my dearest friends is Dustin Lance Black, the young man who wrote the screenplay for Milk, and he was campaigning with me for Obama in Nevada. And when we came back, we just started talking about this ping pong game and how absurd it was to be fighting these incredibly expensive, protracted battles for fractions of equality. And in California, it's particularly frustrating because, and the debate there now is when to go back on the ballot, the cost of the next campaign is estimated to be between $40 and $50 million. And yet the state of California has already granted same-sex couples all of the rights that the state is capable of granting. This is due to legislation that was carried principally by former state Senator Carol Nignan. So there we're looking at this, gearing up for this battle at an incredible expense, really just for the right to use the word marriage. Now I get that that is a very important word to an awful lot of our people, so I don't want to diminish that. But I am very concerned at the prospect of raising and spending $40 to $50 million on this campaign, which we may or may not win. Another